Welcome to this Sustainable Building Now webinar. Welcome to you sitting at home, and welcome to the audience here at Epicenter. The building sector is presenting a huge climate footprint, but it's also a crib for solutions, like we will see today. But these solutions need scale, and it needs speed in order to cut emission enough for a thriving planet. My name is Ingvild Kielen Rørholt, and I work at the environmental organization Zero with this, finding solutions, making a market to scale and cut emissions. And today I will, on behalf of the Embassy of Finland, the Business Finland, and the Finnish Norwegian Cultural Institute, lead you through this day. This is the third Innovation Week seminar that they have together. Now, we have called this event Sustainable Building Now because the solutions exist, we just need to use them in scale. In the first part, we will address sustainability and social living in modern architecture, and we aim to inspire you. How can architects and designers influence the sustainability of buildings? In the second part, the theme is sustainable networks and cooperation, both between the countries, the established actors, and the startups. And here, we want to ask, how can existing networks and clusters within sustainable construction in Finland and Norway cooperate to help Finnish and Norwegian business? In the third part, we'll hear pitches from six selected startups and businesses who will show you solutions we can use now. To open the seminar, we have the honor to welcome the ambassador of Finland to Norway, Mikael Antel. Please enter the stage.
Thank you very much, Ingvild, ladies and gentlemen. Nice to see you all here, and physically and digitally. Ladies and gentlemen, there is an urgency to find sustainable solutions in all industries and areas, and the building sector is, of course, no exception. In fact, the building sector and buildings themselves contribute to about a third of all CO2 emissions in Finland. So it is obvious that we need to cut emissions now. In 2019, the Nordic countries signed a joint statement on low-carbon building and circular economy in the building industry. This was the starting point of an effort towards Nordic harmonization for low-carbon emissions from construction. There is a bounty of know-how in the Nordics in how we can reduce the carbon footprint in building industry. We can learn from each other and offer our solutions also to other countries. Together we can be examples how ambitious climate and circular economy ambitions can be turned into practical solutions. Finland, Sweden, and Norway already have, for example, been working on legislation for low-carbon construction. Today, it is my sincere hope that we can learn more on how clusters can work together in Norway and Finland. We are indeed small countries, but globally we could create super clusters and enter new markets together. This is what we all aim for. Finally, I wish to thank Oslo Innovation Week and, of course, our partners at Business Finland and the Finnish Norwegian Cultural Institute. Thank you, Ingvild and Zero as well. Thanks to all of you for joining, either here at Epicenter or digitally. We hope this webinar gives you food for thought and concrete examples on what we can do to limit global heating. Warmly welcome to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Thank you. We will start this part of the program with looking at 2 sustainable buildings, one from Norway and one from Finland. And the first one is in Helsinki. It's called the Urban Environment House, and it was recently nominated to the prestigious Finlandia Architecture Prize. So please take part of this virtual tour of the environmental house.
This building is placed in former harbour site, very dense new area. The aim was to gather all the people working in this division on the same roof, give all the services from the same building. The building is mostly for office work, and the idea is to create the perfect solution for activity-based working environment. All the solutions, technical and sustainable solutions, are supporting that. The basic idea was to create a building which is easy to use. All the spaces are possible to transform to other functions, and all the technical installations are easy to change and maintain. There is systems that monitor the environment, for example, lighting conditions, and that the air you're breathing is good condition, and you never use energy more than needed. It has a long span of use. And for example, we have green roofs, solar panels, and so on. The overall concept is well done. That's what I'm proud of. And we have nice, good natural materials here, and all the materials and colors are matching. And still there is variety in different places. Good kind of composition of different spaces connecting each other, and also that the place where the building is very interesting. Maybe the hardest part was that in this project we changed the idea of working environment in this division of urban environment, and how to kind of connect all the people to get all the information how people work here. That was the hardest part. Also, in the future, after the pandemic, it's very important that we think about how people work better in the future. That influences buildings also.
So I hope you got as inspired as me by looking at this. And now we'll move from Helsinki to the northern of Norway, to Evenes School, and see how they solve the sustainability at that building. Please.
Evenes is a small community in Ofoten in northern Norway. The municipality had decided to merge 2 smaller schools into one large school at Liland, and at the same time create a new local arena which would stimulate growth in the community. The main challenge in the brief was to reuse the existing main school building and maintain operations in this structure while the new part of the school was under construction, thereby avoiding the use of temporary classroom structures. This premise yielded both cost savings in the project budget and contributed to an environmentally sustainable strategy. At the time, we had just finished our first project in CLT, the Moholt Student Towers, and we presented the benefits of building in wood to the client. They were thrilled by the idea of building a school, a multipurpose hall, and a swimming pool in wood. The project also has a socially sustainable ambition by aiming to offer new public arenas for the community while boosting the attractiveness of Evenes to new inhabitants. The project is not just a school facility, but the school spaces can also host activities for the entire community. The auditorium in the school has already been used for film evenings, church services, and gymnastics lessons. The auditorium connects the new and the old buildings. We wanted the space to be transparent, inviting visitors into the heart of the school. The rest of the school volume wraps around the outdoor area to provide shelter from the cold winter winds and creates a protected schoolyard. The load-bearing structure, interior walls, ceilings, and facades are made of wood. The extensive use of wood contributes to good room acoustics, good hygroscopic qualities, and durable maintenance-friendly surfaces. We are very satisfied with the broad scope of sustainable ambitions in the project and hope it will have a positive effect on Evenes.
Thank you for letting us see how good you did at Evenes at this school. And now we just saw these two signatures buildings from Norway and Finland, and it's time to have a panel discussion. So let me introduce the panel for you. It's Minna Riska. Please come up to the stage from MHD Architects. You have been a part of making Evenes School and designing it. And we also have Timo Sappala. He is with us online from Ladmela and Mählämäki Architects in Finland. And Christian Pag, please come up, the director and chief architect, curator of Oslo Architect Triennale. So, are you with us also, Timo? Great.
Yes.
Yes, you are with us. So let's start with you from Finland. This urban environment house, you talked about material choices, and we know that material has a big impact on the climate footprint of a building. So can you give us some more examples on how you choose materials and what impact it had?
Yes, the aim was to build a building with a very long life cycle, and that reflected also in architectural design, structural and spatial solutions, but also the materials that we used in the building. So the main idea was to use durable, natural surface materials, brick and wood, and with no harmful emissions. And so the basic idea was to create a building with that lasts long. The longer the building lasts, more ecological it is.
Yes, and at Evenes you also had some material choices, and could you tell us more what exactly makes Evenes School so environmental friendly and sustainable?
Well, first it is the fact that we reuse an existing building. So instead of tearing it down or building new, we are using an existing building. This is materially saving, of course, and it is economically a sustainable choice. The new buildings, the new parts, are built in CLT, wood, which, depending on project, has a reduced impact on the environment. It's environmentally friendly, and it's CO2 saving, let's say. And it is also, I would say, it has a considerable social sustainable profile, because the school is not actually only a school, but it's also a sort of a community house for the whole community. So it is meant to be used throughout the day, And it has everything from, as it says in the film, there has been already used for church services, which is quite unusual for a school, and it's used for adults activities and also children's activities. And it has this library, which is what you would call in Norwegian folkebibliotek, a people's library, which is not only a school library.
Yeah.
So you have these all three aspects kind of gathered in the school.
That's great, and I know you also care about these social aspects, and we know the next triennial has a neighborhood as its core. Could you tell us more about how buildings can be used for an environment-friendly neighborhood or sustainable neighborhood?
I can indeed. No, I think both of you are mentioning, in a sense, time. And often when you talk about architecture and planning and sustainability, you focus very much on the materials themselves, and they are, of course, super important. But literally, the way we use buildings, for example, how long they stand and how intensively they are used is at least as important as the actual materials. Neighborhood is exactly as you mentioned, is often about how can we actually use things more together, which can benefit, of course, the fact that we need less buildings because we use the same buildings more, but also it can help loneliness and be more fun and more exciting and a more living community. So what the Triennale is exploring in a year, the actual Triennale will open. What we're exploring in the Triennale is exactly this: how do you knit together the physical structure of cities, neighborhoods, and buildings with social infrastructure and everyday life, which is, I mean, a neighborhood is where we live. It's our everyday life framework in a way. So we are interested in looking at all these transitions between individual life, the street, the building, the neighborhood, and the city at large, with this focus on the meeting points between physical structures and social relevance.
Yeah. So how can the architects influence this?
I think in many ways. If we are invited to the very beginning of the process, we can help influence the choice of sites to use buildings that are old or derelict to give more value to the neighborhood or to the city or the village in question here. And this is what we also see that this is done more and more, that architects are invited to a kind of a preliminary part, like a parallel assignment, for example, to research the opportunities that are available for a certain village. And that is very good, I think.
Is it the same in Finland?
Yeah, I believe in Minna's work I see quite many similarities in Finnish approach. Also in school design, our office has been designing schools also quite a lot, and that to gather the community together in that building, it's very important. And but also in that urban environmental house, there is spaces that people can use themselves together for meetings and so on. This is very important subject, I think.
Yeah, and we stress in this webinar the importance of now that we need to really scale up the sustainable aspects now, just materials and sustainable building and sustainable living. So what kind of role can the architect take for material choices, and what's your agency possibilities, and how do you feel responsible? That goes to all of you.
Well, at Evenes, the design was not supposed to be in wood. That was not one of the aim or the choices from the beginning. It was our proposal. So they wanted to use the rebuilding to rebuild the existing school into a part of the school, but there was not a thought of materials further than that. So we presented this idea and the benefits of building with wood, not only from an environmental point of view, but also from a maintenance point of view. And they really liked this idea, and we're happy that they kind of jumped into it and took the chance, even if they hadn't seen this as a possibility in the beginning. So I do think that architects can do a lot by inspiring people to do other choices.
No, I can add to this. I think exactly the importance of being imaginative from the very beginning of projects is incredibly important, and often architects have that position to trigger more than you would imagine of value creation. That can be in choice of materials, but also in the conceptual structure, who uses these spaces, in what way. And I think we're getting better and better at having, for example, a school also being a community house, or an office also being a cafe. So we're being better at, let's say, adding multitudes of layers to a building. Because you have to think, generally we're pretty stupid, right? So we have half our buildings empty half of the time. So I mean, my home is empty now, and offices, etc. So there's something about like an incredibly amount of mass is standing underused. So we need to be much better at this kind of sharing things, especially because, and this is notably in the Nordic countries, we're becoming more and more lonely. This kind of a weird doubleness or double challenge that we, if we become better at weaving our lives together, we can actually both save CO2 and we can become happier. But I have to say also, neighbors can be very annoying. So it's difficult. You need to be good architects. So you cannot overdo it, because then you just go nuts. So the art of finding those good solutions, that's where we count on you.
And how can, let me follow up on that. I lived in a neighborhood which did not have enough meeting places, and now I moved to somewhere where there is a lot, and there's a lot different in that environment for the neighbors. But how can you often get like one house? How can you influence? How can we make it possible that you get to do this work? If you could have any incentives or any, what would you change in the planning or in your role or in your possibilities?
Sorry. I think if we start early, the planning, and we are involved before all the decisions are decided, let's say, with involving more professionals and more people that will in the future will be involved in this project. Like if it's a school, it's teachers and also the neighborhoods, community, and that we are already doing, but it's still like a sort of a, let's say, it's a special project if you do it like that. But that should be made sort of a standard, that you do that in all projects. That you involve from the beginning, let's say. So it should become a reflex, really.
You could say that so a challenge is, as many problems, many projects are done business as usual, because we know we can do it like this, concrete, boom, boom, the building is done, and it's a single standing unit. That's the easiest thing to build. And we need to stop business as usual. So we need to have every project be ambitious in terms of materials. But why do we not expect that every construction that we make is giving something beyond its own building? It's actually giving something to the community somehow. I think that type of mindset, and you actually have a vision for every project to be more than just the project itself. It's something you could actually make incentives for and promote and expect, both on the public side and from private developers and all the actors that kind of co-create the city.
Yeah. Is that different in Finland than in Norway?
I don't know, but I think it's very important to kind of reserve time in start of the project to explore all the possibilities. I think that's actually a trend now that coming more and more stronger and stronger, that we gather together all the users of the building and the designers and the whole design team together with the client and think about the solutions, the functions of the building, and also the sustainable solutions. And that's something that we started already in this urban environmental house. And there was a lot of workshops at the beginning, and with the so to kind of test the program, that do people work there? Is it the best place to work there? And it continued all the time during all the design and building process. But also we tested kind of materials and structural kind also costs were involved, so that was kind of a main thing about it, to kind of also choose kind of cost-effective solutions. So I think as an architect we are part of that process, and sort of we have a major role also in that process, but I think we like to include more people to the designing process.
Yeah, and there are new material choices, new possibilities, but is there anything missing? Is there any innovation you would like to see that we still don't have to make buildings more sustainable? Or is it just the time and the process around? Or is there anything lacking which a startup could start innovating?
I mean, there's a lot of things lacking. I mean, let's just open the window. I mean, if you look at what's being built around the world, at least in terms of residential construction, it is it's pretty bad, and it's totally not sustainable. We're building Manhattan each month. Imagine that around the planet. Each month you add Manhattan in building mass, and most of it is just badly designed and badly built. So we have a long way to go. Of course, I think we can say in Scandinavia we have maybe a higher standard and we're doing better. But I would think notably, maybe that's because that's my passion, but I think notably in actually understanding the usage, the cycle of use, and the temporality of buildings in use is underdeveloped and under-discussed. I'm really happy that this materials conversations, they're coming up and they're super important. But I think the life cycle aspect of a building is equally as important, and I think we have a pretty long way to go. But it's also super difficult. So it's really nice to see a house like yours, Timo, that's so beautifully crafted out and just looks really good. And your school, by the way, I think they're both really beautiful buildings.
I would like to add that I think it's important when you design project, whether it's residential or schools or anything, that the budget is big enough that you can have good materials and a little bit of flexibility in area, in let's say size. Because we are now scaling things very much down, and that is also not sustainable. Even if it's sustainable to build less, of course, you still have to have enough to be a little bit flexible. And this especially, I mean, it applies to, I think, new housing, which is very, very tight, and there's really no kind of space for the people to evolve and to develop in their houses. And also, let's say schools, that we actually use good material. We use sustainable materials and we use real natural materials which have a longer lifespan and a better way of aging than the cheapest materials that has to be changed very quickly.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the hardest thing is to turn people's minds to think about the whole life cycle of the building, and because normally it's a different person who pays the building process, and then the person who pays the use of the building, and that's the thing, and so. It's easy to think about only the kind of building materials and their emissions and so on, and but I just to want to just say that while you asked about the materials, that I think maybe the most important things are that we have enough competition in the kind of competitive sustainable products available for building industry. That's one thing, because the builders want to kind of choose from several options, and also that wood material for us here in North, it's very natural, and we should really use it more in building because it's possible. But globally, I think what we need is to kind of find better solutions to product concrete and steel. It's significantly lower emission methods.
And in the next part of the next panel discussion we will talk more about corporations and clusters. But I also wonder, is there anything Norway and Finland can learn from each other when it comes to architecture and city planning? I know you were talking about Oslo and Helsinki, how they plan differently and work differently.
Yes, I think. I think in Norway, in Oslo, one could learn a little bit from the Finnish city planning office, who have a bigger involvement in what is being planned, and they also have a kind of a planning office within the city planning office, so it doesn't become purely, let's say, administrational. I do know they do a great deal of planning as well in Oslo, but in Helsinki, I think they have an even sort of a greater impact from the beginning on with carrots to developers. They organize more competitions. They let's say. With carrots of kind of building more facilities or better sustainable with better sustainable goals in these kind of competitions. So that is, I think, very important.
Yeah,
I agree.
You agree? Is there anything Finland can learn from Norway?
I think this sort of events are very good for that, and I have to admit that I don't know much about Oslo way of how they build. I've been there several times, but and the city looks great, and and I believe that we have great ways of learning from you there, and I think we just need more this sort of events to find out about those things.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Minna, Timo, and Christian for coming and taking this interesting conversation with us. In part 2, we'll discuss how existing networks and clusters can help within sustainable development and helping startups coming abroad. So now we have everybody online. And Sami Lankiniemi, I hope I pronounced that not too bad. My Finnish.
That's all correct.
Great.
Hello.
You are head of partnership at Kira Hub, a non-profit association boosting sustainable digitalization of building environment in Finland. Thank you for coming online to us today. And Åsmund Bunkholt. Yes. CEO of Trefocus. And Trefocus has been working with sustainable buildings and city planning in Norway for many years, and material use. And you are also part-time lecturer at the University of Ås, the Norwegian University of Science and Technology. Thank you. And Robin Løv. Yeah, it's a bit lag, so I hear your sound a little bit later. But that we're used to now after 1.5 years on home office and how it works on Teams. So Robin Løvseth, you're the last panelist with us. You are leader of technology at Betongklyggen, N3C. Yes, and you also work as a leader in at technology and senior advisor at Coupa. So you provide information about how we can use concrete in an environmental friendly way.
Yes.
I have an opening question to you all. And we've been talking now about the urgency, and we all know Code Red and how fast we need to cut emissions. In the previous panel, we talked about the role of the architects, but how do you see the role of the clusters in order to make this change happen faster? Let's begin with you, Sami. Can you hear the sound? Yeah.
Yes, so we all know that we need to take every action to attack the climate crisis. That's all very apparent to us. We need to cut our emissions and slow down the loss of biodiversity as much as we can, as fast as we can. For what we've started to kind of boost the systemic change in the AEC and the built environment to really go forward in this is that we like to take focus on the impact measurement. We need to model the impact and lead by real results so we can concentrate to act where the effect is the biggest. So, of course, every action is needed, but we need to concentrate with what we do. And this is what we can learn by doing the impact valuation in the sector and join forces. That's what the clusters do. So we help different companies, different organizations find good partners where they can solve the climate-related issues that they have in their business or create solutions that create value to their end clients at the same time mitigating the climate effects.
Yeah. And Robin?
Yeah, well, I think one important thing to remember is that in the construction kind of business, it's a huge part of it is SME. So small and medium-sized enterprises. So I think one important role of the clusters is to actually give resources for these SMEs to also be a part of this transition. Because all the big players, the large companies, they have their own research budget, they have their own marketing division, but SME companies does not have that. So in order to get everybody on board on this and to reach our goals, it's very important that actually the large part of in the building industry is actually SMEs. So it's very important that you have large and clusters so that they can get the market knowledge and so that they can also take part of the transition.
Osmund?
Yeah, I think that's actually a very good point. And I know, of course, the building industry in general, but especially the wood industry. And the same thing occurred there, that we have to join forces. And actually, Trepok is part of two wood clusters. That's the Norwegian wood cluster and the woodworks cluster. And both of them actually have small companies, big companies. And the strength here is that they join forces and actually handling the big challenges that they have in front. So I think the networks and clusters are vital to get up to speed and also get everybody on board, actually. So a very important role.
So, Sami, how can the clusters help? How?
Yeah, so, yeah, big question. I think one of the biggest tasks also, as we are transforming the production processes, but we are also transforming our value creation and business side of things. But all that ties this together is the cultural change in our industry. And I'm an endless dreamer, so I like to create positive momentum on all around this. We know that it's a huge task we need to attack, but we need to be positive, and we have tremendous solutions for all of this. So we need to showcase these examples to kind of widen the narrative and tie the community together to act combined, and then expanding the kind of individual expert support network inside their own organization to also beyond and across company borders. And lastly, we need to help them in finding new partners and clients to kind of unleash their full potential, to scale their impact. And this might mean businesses from other industries. And this is where the clusters have been quite good at.
Yeah. And Robin, do you think you talked about SMEs and small and medium-sized industry? How can the cluster help with cooperating with other clusters? Or
yeah, well, definitely. I mean, it's as Åsmund mentioned, the cooperation between clusters is also important. Your question was for clusters can help. So what we do in Betongklyngen, or as the new name is, our concrete innovation cluster. What we do, we provide actually resources in order to get the companies to get the sustainable goals and to get the transition. So we have the network in order for the businesses to get in contact with the researchers, with the universities, the regulatory knowledge we have, and then we also cooperate with other clusters. We have cooperations in northern part of Norway and Sweden and Finland. We actually do have cooperations between clusters, so that also helps from the countries in Norway and in Sweden to know how does the business work in the other country. So I think that's very important. As I mentioned, the SMEs does not have a lot of assets in order to make innovation happen, and at least they don't have any resources looking into a kind of an international market. So tapping into a cluster where you have the network and when you can understand the market, it's very important, especially for a startup. Because a cluster is actually kind of a miniature of your market. You will get all the knowledge you need in order to implement your product or service. I think it's very important that you know what you're going into. So, and as a cluster, we know Norway very well. And of course, if we talk to the other clusters in Sweden and Finland, they know their country very well. So in order to have cooperations, I think it's the easiest way is actually tapping into the different clusters, because then you will have the direct market intelligence. And as for startup, that is especially important.
yes.
Just to pick up on Robin, if you have a question, Ingvild, or should I just pick up on
please go on, pick up.
Because I think a very important role here is the exchange of experience and knowledge, because get the flow here between the actors or the businesses is very important, and creating that confidence in that's maybe the cluster's most important role, because confidence is vital here, that you are willing to share because you have a common challenge. So sharing from the big ones to the small ones is very important. And also, as you mentioned, Robin, or you tended to mention the education system, I think the cooperation here from clusters to education is also very important, so that the actors that come out of the education systems tomorrow or in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, that they are competent, that they have the right attitude and the right skills actually to be partners in changing the future in a way. And here the cluster as well will have a very important role to give the education system a market orientation actually, so they see, okay, what is actually the challenges that we need to solve together.
Yeah. We asked the participants earlier what kind of footprint the material has in a building. I forgot to give you the facet. It's 50% was in the pool. So, but it's also for you, the materials of the buildings are 50% of the emissions. Do you have any concrete examples on how the cluster has helped cutting these emissions or making connection which helps cut these emissions?
If I can mention that, and I think Robin and I talked about that when we met last time. If we stop building new buildings and turn to the old buildings and try to refurbish and upgrade them, the cut in emissions will be much, much higher actually. I think the clusters here have an important role to turn, in a way, the architects from new buildings to the existing buildings. because very much can be done with those, and we will spare the CO2 emissions, and we will spare resources actually. So it's a very important role here. And like I can mention that the Norwegian Wood Cluster, they have just got one of the big projects from Green Platform in Norway, the 1 billion kroner that was where we could apply. And one of the projects here is circular wood, that is called, but it's a big scheme, and I think a contact here with the Betongklyngen would be very natural during this project, for instance.
Yeah, well, I have a lot of concrete examples because what we're working on is for the concrete, and and as Osmund said, prolonging the life of existing buildings is actually the action that will reduce the emissions the most. So trying to prolong the life of concrete buildings is one of our focus areas. So we're working heavily with our partnership, the companies that are in the cluster, in order to make new methods and how you can prolong the life of concrete buildings then. And also, if you have to demolish a concrete building or infrastructure, how can you reuse that concrete into new buildings? That will also reduce the CO2 emissions. So we have a lot of projects in Norway, and one of the biggest project is actually in Bodø, where they are going to demolish a completely NATO airport, and where we are involved in that research project and see how we can reuse all of that concrete, either as a reused crushed aggregates in order to make new concrete, or actually to use the buildings, reuse them as they are.
Yeah. Sami, do you have anything you would like to add or examples you would like to share?
Yeah, I think the best advancements in Finland have been done in kind of visualizing and communicating all these climate impacts of the building materials and the whole building process and the life cycle of the building. So we've created tremendous tools to communicate these impacts to different stakeholders and to engage them in the dialogue of kind of setting common goals and seeing where we need to cut the emissions and where we can cut them without hindering the quality of the building or the quality of the life cycle, or even end of life, where we dismantle the building, where we can find new ways to capture or keep the carbon inside and not unleash it yet, and extending the material life cycle. Motiva in Finland with their cooperation network have created this excellent marketplace for circular materials, building materials that are dismantled and to be taken into use. And we just recently this weekend had a hackathon between Finland and Estonia, where we found 3 new services to be built on top of this registry to make it a lot easier for designers to use this information when planning on creating buildings, but also in portfolio management for the real estate side to kind of manage their material banks and even have them as futures like in finance. So you can create this kind of monetized NFT tokenization and blockchain for them to be sold later on and kind of prospect that value in the future when the building is dismantled. So those are a few recent examples of these cases. But I think the visualization and communication of these life cycle impacts is the key and success in Finland.
I already hear some things that we could learn in Norway. Or what do you think, Robin and Osmund? Is there anything we could learn from Finland and what they do?
I think, as I said, digitalization is one thing that we know that Finland has a lot of experience on, and that will be an important role in order to make a market for this, in order to get the documentation in the new concrete, in order to make use in new buildings. It's very important. So I think Finland has a lot to contribute there.
Yeah, I agree absolutely, and I think digitalization of our building stock actually. I mean, we have very good overview of all our natural resources. Every single tree, every single geology forms, things like that, but not the building stock. So we should get the same overview of the building stock, so we know, okay, this building has this and those materials. And then we can start to think, okay, now it's going to be dismantled, and then we can use it. So getting that overview, we can obviously learn something from Finland.
Yeah, and how can, Sami, I can ask you also, how can you cooperate better, and what can you achieve if you cooperate as clusters between countries?
Yeah, so I think it's so great that we have kind of these distinctive qualities and specialities in what we do in these different countries, because we cannot work on the same subject as all. The climate crisis is so urgent that we need to concentrate on the best things that we are best in, and then copy the ones we don't concentrate in. So that way we can attack this all in an effective manner. And previously in my career, I have been tremendously kind of impressed about how you take building material safety into account, and how that has become a kind of public dialogue, and how you take the construction industry and real estate industry into public debate in a positive manner in that sense. And that's something we need to learn from you, as well as you've had very good commercial success with some of the companies worldwide. So that's something we need to learn. We are in Finland, we tend to concentrate on our home market, but from Norway there have been revolutionary products like Spacemaker and so forth, taking the market by storm with new, innovative, novel solutions. So that's, I think, that kind of mentality is what we need to learn from Norway.
Yes, and how can companies who want to get involved with the clusters and help out to cut emissions or to broaden their possibilities, how can they get involved? What do they do?
Well, I think it's just to contact us. We are especially interested in getting startups into the clusters, because they are important in getting new ideas, new products and services. And we have a lot of startups in our clusters, and I think that what they see is that they get, as I said earlier, they get the market intel, which is so important for a startup, because you don't have the resources in order to, you cannot fail too many times in order to get your product market fit. So it's very important actually to contact a cluster. And also I would say being a part of a cluster is not only to get a membership, but you also have to be active. The more active you are, the more you get out of it. So that's also very important. And I think that the more active people are, not just being a member, being a partner, be involved in projects, that will also accelerate the transition for everybody.
Yeah.
Just to follow up there, because I think, as Robin says, the connection to the startup is very vital, and vitalizing the existing industry actually, because they're kind of challenging, because they're kind of underdogs that can come in and raise the questions actually without no falling height actually. So I think the connection here between existing and established companies and startups is a very good way to go on with the big challenges actually.
Great, and yeah,
I totally agree. We annually spar around 50 to 60 companies in Finland in these exact topics, and I think Asmund and Robin really hit the right spot there with what clusters can do. And I already have 2 ideas on who I can forward to Robin on this area. So looking forward to this dialogue. I think what is needed also from the side of the state and government, I think there will hopefully be a lot of positive incentives towards our industry. In Finland, we are proud and privileged to have opened up this carbon neutral built environment program for 40 million euros of funding through the 2.5 years going forward now. So it's a tremendous opportunity also for the international companies to work with Finnish companies and get funding for that. So welcome.
Thank you. And to follow up on that, are there any incentives from the government which would make it easy for you to scale faster and do more to cut emissions? Osmund?
Yeah, there are some incentives, but I just was on a seminar here and presenting building on top of concrete blocks to upgrade them. And there are more problems than incentives actually. I mean, we have a circular economy strategy. And we have lots of national strategies, but very little incentives actually. So it's all based on that we can create projects ourselves and we actually do the things ourselves. So I would actually wish more incentives that could help us and get up to speed here actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of incentives also for startups. There's a lot of programs, but I think with respect to prolonging the life of buildings, I think you have to look into that, because if you look into all, I don't know how it is in Finland, but in Norway, every municipality that is going to build not Evenes, of course, but building new schools and have to building new offices, the normal thing is to demolish an old building and to build a new one, because the cost is known. So the uncertainty of refurbishing construction, a office building or a school or whatever building is uncertain, and that's why it's not being done. So also for architects, they need to push to make it interesting. It's more interesting to build a new building than to refurbish old. So I think the mentality needs to change, and it also has to be some incentives for the building owners that are going to whether it chooses to demolish it or to refurbish it. But now there's a risk for the refurbishing, and it's not known. So it needs to come some incentives in how to do that, and people need to understand that. The biggest CO2 savings is actually to prolong the existing building, because then the CO2 emissions is already taken 20 years ago. If you build a new building now, you're actually taking up a CO2 loan that you down pay over 30 years, and we need to do the CO2 emission cut today.
That's a great last line. Thank you so much for an interesting conversation, Sami, Robin, and Åsmund. Bye-bye. We are ready to present the last part of our webinar today. We have 6 carefully selected startups from Finland and Norway, which are actually having good solutions to cut emissions in small and big for buildings. We will see green walls, we will see wood sinks and all there between. So please, let us see the movies now.
Business worldwide simply cannot continue at the current rate. We must find new, sustainable means through innovation and technology. Hi, I'm Janne Rauramo, Commercial Director of BetaLab. We are a material technology company with a strong base in science, developing low-carbon solutions through utilizing industrial side streams in the production of concrete. BetaLab is bridging the gap between science and business. By combining innovation and commercialization, we ensure our solutions are sustainable, both environmentally and financially, today and over the decades to come. As our first commercialized product, we offer the Geoprime concept for partners in concrete production, based on utilizing industrial side streams as binders and even as aggregates, combined with our Geoprime activators.
Näen potentiaalia kyllä niin kuin kaikessa betoniliiketoiminnassa toimia potentiaalisena korvaavana tuotteena.
We're able to reduce up to 80% of the CO2 emissions compared to traditional OPC concrete,
and increase the circularity of materials used.
All this is fine and well, but if we really want to make a large-scale impact, we need to remember that financial feasibility is part of sustainability.
Our extensive research, already extending over 300 available side streams, ensures that the Geoprime-enabled production process is and remains profitable for our partners in the future. We at BetaLab are working towards truly sustainable solutions for the construction industry. with proven results already in, with our Geoprime solution going into production as we speak.
Let's make a difference while gaining a sustainable competitive edge together. Thank you.
Welcome to Formrocks. My name is Rolf Jakobsen, and I have worked to replace the pier foam and concrete in tunnels in about 12 years now. That is to take down the CO2 emission. We can replace concrete and pier foam. And if the worldwide goal is zero emission in 2050, we have to go for a new material. We have worked in road and tunnel industry and construction industry now, and we have delivered about 50 tunnels in Norway. Formrock is lighter, 50% zero emission, health and safety, isolating, fireproof, waterproof, damp-proof. So we have here a complete new building material. Being Rogfast is a concrete project we work with now. That is 27 kilometer long tunnel in west coast of Norway. And in this project, 84% of the CO2 emission come from concrete and steel. And we're working now to take down the CO2 emission in the place we can replace concrete and steel there now.
Hi, my name is Petro Lahtinen. I am the founder and CEO of Vudio. I strongly feel that climate change and CO2 emissions is the big trend we need to all start to tackle. I think that the plastic waste problem and recycling economy and these kind of things which don't directly affect climate change and CO2 levels in the atmosphere, they are short-term trends. But the long-term trend, what we need to tackle for decades, is reducing the CO2 carbon footprint of humankind, and we are in that business. So we have our horizon in decades ahead. Well, Vudio is a new design company from Finland. We have developed a completely new kind of wood material, which looks like this. This is really unique material since it's completely waterproof, which is very untypical for wooden materials. This has very low carbon footprint, zero emissions in the manufacturing process, and this can replace ceramic materials in all bathroom applications where we have typically seen ceramics, like bathtubs, wash basins and tiles, for instance. So a normal wash basin like this, typically if you make it from ceramics, the carbon footprint is about 55 kilograms of CO2 emissions. The same product from a Vudio material, it's only 600 grams, so it's over 90% smaller carbon emission compared to ceramic materials. Ceramic materials, they are all burned twice in really high temperatures in furnaces. And these furnaces are heated up with gas or oil. And that results in huge amounts of CO2 emissions. Our manufacturing process is completely carbon neutral. We don't use significant amounts of energy in the production or in the whole factory. And at the moment, we are also using renewable electricity in our production.
Skoglift is reconnecting people with nature. We've developed a concept to bring the power and energy of plants indoors, where we spend much of our time. The Skoglift wall is more than the sum of its parts. It symbolizes what we're missing today. It's a philosophy, triggering dreams, feelings, and improved health. Skoglift offers an innovative solution that connects biology, design, technology, community, and a green lifestyle in one. Many years ago, people lived in caves, and we called them cavemen. But that could easily describe the way we live today. But we can't stop living indoors. That's where we live and often work and go to school. However, there is one simple thing we can do that can change our lives. Nature and light belong together, and humans and nature need exactly the same light. But the biggest effects of light are when you light up plants and nature with daylight. The reflection these plants give from light works very powerfully on us. Through more than 25 years of research on plants and the effect of light on people indoors, we've developed a system that can help us in the life we live today. The effects have been documented through research with 2,000 people at schools, hospitals, and workplaces. The benefits were that people became more alert, less fatigued, with a stronger ability to concentrate, and respiratory ailments became better. Plants give us an opportunity to bring balance into our lives. And this ecosystem is vitally important and basic to all life, also our lives as cavemen inside.
Kuda Oslo and greetings from Finland. My name is Sini and we're EcoUp. We are in the business of saving our planet. Our mission is to build a truly greener construction industry. Let's see how we do it. In Europe alone, more than 500 million tons of construction and demolition waste is generated every year. What happens to that waste mostly today? Either it becomes landfill or it's recycled to low-grade aggregates with no possibilities of higher value reuse. At the same time, the use of virgin materials is high, and the construction industry produces 40% of the global CO2 footprint. This is where we come in. We are able to produce uniform quality geopolymers from construction and demolition waste. In the end, it means less landfill and greener products. We license our technologies to the global construction and recycling industry. Let's see one example. Waste mineral wool. With our process, we start by cleaning the wool from unwanted components. We then continue by crushing it to millimeter-sized grains. At this point, the material already has a cleanliness of 98%. The real magic happens next. We take those millimeter-sized grains and grind them through our patent-pending process. As a result, we have very fine micron-sized powder, the geopolymer base material. Next, this base material is activated, which to be precise means that now it becomes a geopolymer. These geopolymers can be used to replace virgin materials in various types of products, such as in bricks and tiles to replace clay and sand, or concrete structures to replace cement, for instance. So let's recap to the end. If you want to recycle, you get a higher value for the waste material that was previously landfill. If you want to build greener products, you can replace majority of the virgin materials with geopolymers. And putting all that together, if you want to build greener buildings, you can do so with selecting products and materials with geopolymers, which will result in remarkably lower carbon footprint for the building. Now, we like to think that we are fighting the good fight, and we invite all of you guys to join that fight with us. Thank you.
First of all, a big thanks to Team Finland for inviting us. I bet this will lead to collaborations across borders. My name is Mats Petersen, and I'm the acting head of innovation in Norsk Gjenvinning. Humble to represent my 1,700 colleagues today. We are Norway's biggest waste management company, and we handle 2.2 million tons of waste annually. In 2008, EU set the goal that 70% of all building waste should be material recycled or reused by 2020. Sustainable building is dependent on that we reach this goal and move beyond. Currently, we're lagging behind, but can we reach this goal within the next few years? Our clear answer is yes. And we have examples showing that it's possible. The housing developer JM, in their projects in Oslo, they now reach a 71%. This is due to close collaboration over time, and what tipped the scale recently was a solution for wood waste, but it's a sum of solutions that makes this 71%. And as a company, we have developed from a logistics partner transporting waste to becoming a producer of secondary raw material at an industrial scale. And the key to this journey success has been collaboration in the value chain. In 2019, we opened the circular gypsum factory. Before, 100% of the gypsum waste ended up in landfills, or worse. Now 50% of all the gypsum material ends up as new raw material in the production of gypsum boards at Norips. And the collaboration with Norips and other actors in the value chain was central to this project's success, reducing the carbon footprint of new gypsum boards from Norips by 15%. These stories illustrate how it's possible to make a circular model within few years when we as a value chain jump together. And I hope this may inspire new collaborations that will make us accelerate the world's transition towards a circular economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope you got as inspired as me to see all these great solutions that we can use now. I really hope we can cut these emissions, not only here in Norway, in Finland, in the Nordic countries, but also worldwide. Maybe we can make our solutions go to other countries and keep on cutting emissions. Thank you very much for participating from home. And here the audience at the epicenter. So it's bye-bye for now. Please keep in contact. Please contact them and us, and please keep up your good work for cutting emissions. For you at the epicenter, you can stay and mingle and eat and do the things that we know are allowed to do. Thank you very much for today, and thank you for Team Finland having this webinar.